Managing Sick Bodies. This is a One School for All lecture by me, Andrew Thomas, at Østfold University College, which I would like my wonderful new international students to watch by Wednesday, the 27th of August, when we next meet. So, before the days of vaccination and antibiotics, there were very few cures, knockdown cures for any diseases in the world. The best thing we could really do was to move the sick body to a better environment. And this sometimes meant that we went on holiday. You go to the mountain air, for example, in a wonderful place like Norway, and maybe that will be good for your body. But for leprosy and plague, we developed very specific models for moving the body to the best possible environment. And I'm going to tell you about these models now. The first one is leprosy, and this on the left is a picture of St. Jørgen's Hospital in Bergen, which I hope you see if you ever do visit Bergen in the west of Norway. The leprosy model was to confine people just outside the city walls. The idea is there's no place for you here amongst us healthy people, and we have to exclude you. Nowadays, St. Jørgen's Hospital is actually really close to the centre of town, but when it was instituted at the beginning of the Renaissance era, it was just outside. It was at the edges of society. And the idea is that means other people won't get leprosy. And this really worked in the Middle Ages. As Foucault wrote in his History of Madness, at the end of the Middle Ages, leprosy disappeared from the Western world. At the edges of the community at town gates, large, barren, uninhabitable areas appeared where the disease no longer reigned, but its ghost still hovered. For centuries, these spaces would belong to the domain of the inhuman. From the 14th to the 17th century, by means of strange incantations, they conjured up a new incarnation of evil, another grinning mask of fear, home to the constantly renewed magic of purification and exclusion. Now, Foucault is dramatizing here, and it is true that these places did contain then other diseases and other problems, like venereal diseases and people who were mad. But as far as the leprosy problem is concerned, leprosy does actually infect people who live very close to the leprous person. And so the idea of separating them out from society was, as I say, maybe an inhuman technique, but it was an effective one. And that is why, at the end of the Middle Ages, leprosy disappeared. They checked everyone at the gate. They kept the city clean. It may sound distasteful, but it was an effective way of eradicating leprosy. It did not work with the plague. The plague used a different method entirely. Instead of establishing one area for the clean and then throwing everybody else out of that, the plague method is to keep everybody exactly where they are, the famous stay at home message. And the plague method assumed that the infection is already amongst us. There is no clean and healthy population. We are already in the presence of the plague. So the plague method used a kind of quarantine, but within the city, not throwing people out, but keeping people in. It was all about control, about treating bodies as dangerous centers of contagion. The plague model involved inspection, constant surveillance, constant knowledge of the population. The guards were not used to force the bodies from one place to another, as the guards at the entries to the city were when it comes to the leprosy model. In the plague model, the guards were there to register. Who are you? What is your name and number? What is your healthy state? What is your medical state? And are you contagious? And that, it has to be said, worked as well. So we have two very different solutions of ways of dealing with contagious bodies. The first one excludes the body. The second one includes it within a space. The first one closes bodies out. The second one closes them in. Leprosy assumes that the community is pure and keeps it pure by guarding it, whereas the plague model assumes that the community is impure and tries to purify it. Leprosy model assumes walls around the community, whereas the plague model uses walls within community and locks the doors. So in the plague model, you would be locked inside your door, and the door would be locked from outside. The leprosy model puts sentries on gates. The plague model puts sentries on the streets. The leprosy has a quarantine hotel outside the city. The plague model has a quarantine inside the city. The leprosy model is all about binary categories. Can you go in or do you have to stay out? The plague model has lots of different categories. Are you contagious? Are you related? Are you alive? Are you dead? Who have you been in contact with recently? The leprosy model restricts bodies, and the plague model controls bodies. And the leprosy model registers everybody once, whereas the plague model continually keeps a register of who lives where and what their healthy status is, what their medical status is. So they're quite different models, but they are both using registers. They're both coding bodies. They're both using medical knowledge to categorize who is who and who can do what. So this is another way of looking at inclusion and exclusion for the management of sick bodies. First and foremost, we can see that this isn't just a matter of morality. We've talked about the ethics and the politics of inclusion and exclusion, but this is all a matter of effectivity. We did solve the plague problem this way, and today the plague is only really a problem in states of chaos, when there are unorganized countries which aren't able to separate people from each other. Then there might be a danger of the plague. But in well-organized states, the plague almost never appears as a problem. Leprosy, on the other hand, is actually curable today. The World Health Organization notes that it's curable, has been for quite some time, since the 1940s. Yet there are still over 200,000 cases worldwide every year, over half of which have been occurring in India. Leprosy, like tuberculosis, for example, is in many ways a human-created problem. If not originated, we maintain leprosy by refusing to distribute our cure to all parts of humanity, by governing and managing bodies in ways that we know to be dangerous and fatal. And that is why so many people die of, like I say, tuberculosis as much as leprosy. Leprosy is the epidemic that no longer catches the modern imagination or the modern conscience, and it can be solved by the techniques we discovered in the Middle Ages.